Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Now, if you're involved in running a business, maybe budgeting, or just trying to figure out how big companies really measure success, performance management often starts and sometimes ends with pretty simple questions like, did we spend too much? Did we sell enough?
Right. But those basic answers, they're often, well, almost useless when you need actionable strategy.
Exactly. If you want to be properly informed, you have to go beyond those big aggregate numbers. You've got to get into the sophisticated core of performance measurement, advanced variance
That's
analysis.
it. We're definitely moving past just checking price versus volume. Today, we're diving into the mechanisms that show what's really driving performance.
Hmm.
I mean, if your total material costs shot up, management needs to know why, right?
Hmm.
Was it because purchasing bought the wrong things, or maybe because production fundamentally changed the recipe?
Or on the sales side. If total sales are up, great. But is that the whole market lifting? Or did our team successfully push the high margin products?
So our mission today is really to calculate and, more importantly, understand the meaning behind four specific variances: materials mix and yield, and sales mix and quantity. These are the tools, really, that help separate the noise from actual insight.
Yeah, and we've pulled together quite a bit of material here. It basically maps out how high-level performance reporting works. We're not just, reading definitions, we're looking at the implications. Why should you care? Well, understanding this breakdown means you know exactly where to look for problems, or maybe opportunities, or even where to assign credit or blame. Okay, let's unpack this. And let's start, as usual, kind of on the factory floor. The cost side of things, right? So materials first. The whole idea of materials mix and yield variances, it really kicks in anytime a company makes something by combining multiple raw materials.
Yeah, I think food production, chemical processing, metal alloys, anywhere there's a specific recipe or formula involved.
Makes sense.
And the problem with basic variance analysis, the standard stuff, it just treats all the material inputs like one big bucket.
Hmm.
So if your total material usage variance looks good, maybe you used less material than budgeted, a simple report might give you a thumbs up.
But it won't tell you how you saved it, will it?
Exactly. It won't tell you if you saved money by, say, swapping a premium ingredient for a cheaper one, which might affect quality, or if maybe your operator just suddenly got way more efficient. And that difference is crucial because the impact on the final product, on quality, on waste, it's completely different.
So we really need to pull those two effects apart. First up is the mix variance. This one focuses purely on the proportions, right?
Correct. It isolates the financial hit or gain just from changing the standard recipe.
Okay, like say you're roasting coffee, premium stuff. Your standard blend needs 70% of this fancy high altitude bean, 30% standard grade, but maybe there's a shortage or a price spike and you end up using 50-50.
Huh.
The mix variance calculates the cost difference just from that 70-30 to 50-50 shift, nothing else.
And that number on its own is important. If that high-altitude bean is way more expensive, using less saves money, gives you a favorable materials mix variance.
Sounds good on paper.
Yeah, sounds like a win. But like you said, that's only half the story.
Which leads us neatly to the yield variance.
Exactly. Yield measures the overall efficiency of the whole process.
Yeah.
It asks, okay, you put in a total quantity of inputs, say 1,000 pounds of raw beans. How much final roasted sellable product did you get out compared to what you expected to get out from that 1,000 pounds?
Right, so if the budget expected 950 pounds of good stuff, but you only got 900 pounds.
That 50-pound difference.
Yeah.
That's your yield loss.
Precisely. It captures whether the process itself created more scrap, more waste, maybe lower quality output that had to be rejected compared to the plan. Overall efficiency.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here, and this is where the real detective work starts, is that these two variances, mix and yield, they're almost always linked. There's often a cause and effect thing going on. This is the kind of insight management really needs to see. Let's dig into that interrelationship then. So maybe our purchasing manager gets that favorable mix variance. They bought less of the expensive bean. Great, cost savings up front.
Looks good for purchasing.
But maybe that cheaper blend. It's harder to roast, causes more beans to burn, or leads to more broken beans. Basically, more waste.
So that initial saving.
Yeah, that favorable mix variance directly causes an unfavorable yield variance. The overall process became less efficient.
Exactly. And the source material really highlights this interpretation because it can uncover situations where different departments, sort of functional silos, might be working against each other without realizing it.
Yeah.
Like you said, purchasing looks great on their report, lowered input costs, favorable mix, but they might have unknowingly tanked production's efficiency numbers with an unfavorable yield.
But hold on, shouldn't a good purchasing manager know that? If they buy something cheaper, off spec maybe, shouldn't they anticipate potential downstream problems? Isn't it still really a purchasing issue?
Well, it certainly raises big questions about specifications and, crucially, internal communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If purchasing deviated significantly from the agreed specs without talking to production, then yes, accountability probably sits with purchasing.
Okay.
But what if production knew about the change but failed to adjust their processes? Maybe recalibrate machines, change temperatures. If they didn't adapt, then maybe the accountability shifts more towards production.
Right. It forces a different kind of conversation.
It does.
Yeah.
This level of detail forces managers away from just saying, oh, waste was high, to asking, okay, why? Did the recipe change hurt us more than the price savings helped us? It pushes control towards managing the decision chain, the communication, not just the final dollar variance.
And the practical use, the so what for management.
It's huge. It points toward looking at alternative control methods. For instance, maybe you have a highly automated chemical plant. If the yield variance is consistently bad, it might not be the mix at all. It could be something like a faulty temperature sensor on one line causing extra evaporation.
Ah, something technical.
Right. And the fact that the yield variance isolated that overall inefficiency is what prompts management to look deeper, maybe at the engineering, instead of just blaming the cost of the raw materials.
Okay. That gives us a really solid picture on the production side, the cost control aspect. Now let's shift gears. We're moving from internal operations and efficiency to the external side, revenue performance, market strategy. So we're diving into sales mix and quantity variances.
And the basic idea here is actually quite similar, quite parallel to what we just discussed on the materials side, but now we're applying it to sales and, importantly, profit margins. Think about a company selling multiple products. Let's use phones. Maybe you sell a high-margin Pro model, a standard base model, and a cheaper budget model.
Right. 3 different price points, probably 3 different profit margins.
Exactly. Now, the overall sales volume variance just tells you if total unit sales were up or down compared to budget, which, again, is just too blunt for making smart decisions. If total sales volume went up by 10,000 units, we absolutely need to know. Was that mostly the high-margin Pro model flying off the shelves, or did everyone just buy the low-margin budget model? The profit impact is totally different.
Yeah, you need to break down where that profit change came from.
And what's fascinating here is, again, we're isolating two powerful, often different forces acting on our revenue. We need to figure out if the change in our total profit was driven by the overall market size changes. Like, did everyone just start buying more phones this quarter? External factor?
Or
That's
was the
like going
change
down.
because of shifts in which specific products customers chose to buy from us? That's more about our internal strategy, our marketing, our sales efforts.
Got it. So that distinction helps attribute success or failure more accurately. Market luck versus internal skill. Precisely. So let's detail the two components. First, the sales mix variance. This measures the profit impact purely from customers buying a different proportion of products than we budgeted for.
Okay, sticking with the phones. Maybe we budgeted hoping 50% of our sales volume would be the high-margin Pro model. But perhaps we ran a really killer marketing campaign for the Pro, and actual sales ended up being 70% Pro models.
Right. That shift in the mix towards the more profitable product gives you a favorable sales mix variance. Even if total units sold were exactly on budget, your overall profit margin per unit went up because of that mix shift.
So that directly reflects internal decisions, like marketing or sales incentives.
Absolutely. If your sales team is incentivized well, maybe they get a bigger commission on the Pro model and they succeed in upselling customers from the base to the Pro. That's success. It shows up clean as day in a favorable sales mix variance. It quantifies the impact of that internal effort.
Okay, that's mix. What's the other piece?
The second component is the sales quantity variance. This one measures the profit variance caused only by changes in the total overall number of units sold across all products combined compared to the budget.
Ah, so this is more about the total pie, not the slices.
Exactly. This variance tends to reflect how we performed relative to the overall market environment. For example, if the entire smartphone market shrank by, say, 10% this quarter because of an economic downturn, and our total unit sales across all models also dropped by about 10%, then our sales quantity variance would likely be negative, reflecting that market-wide drop.
So the interpretation here is really key for management, isn't it?
Critical. If our sales quantity variance is really good, strongly favorable, we have to ask why. Did we launch some amazing national campaign that just stole market share left and right? That's an internal driver. Or did, I don't know, a competitor suddenly go bankrupt, leaving a huge gap in the market? Or Maybe some external trend just massively increased demand for our type of product, and we just rode the wave.
Yep.
External driver. The sales quantity variance is often that first signal of those big external market shifts.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, putting them together. What if both the mix variance and the quantity variance are favorable?
That's the dream scenario, right? It suggests the overall market quantity is growing, or at least we're grabbing more share. And our internal strategy, mix, is successfully steering customers towards our most profitable offerings. Win-win.
But what about a situation where, say, the total sales volume is flat, like a zero quantity variance, but the sales mix variance is strongly favorable?
Ah, now that's really telling. That suggests the sales and marketing teams are performing incredibly well. They've managed to increase overall profitability by changing what people buy, even without any help from overall market growth. They're essentially improving the average profit per sale through skill.
That sounds like strategic execution defined.
It really is. It means maybe the sales director deserves a bonus because they grew profit through internal skill, not just external luck.
Conversely,
Conversely, if the quantity variance is favorable, maybe we sold tons of units, but it's masking an unfavorable sales mix.
meaning we sold loads, but it was all the low-margin budget model.
Exactly. And management needs to see that and react fast. Why did our high-margin models lag? Was our pricing wrong? Did a competitor undercut us specifically on the high end? This level of detail moves the conversation beyond just sales were up, down, to actually diagnosing your strategic position in the market.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together then, connect the dots for everyone listening. We've looked at two big areas, materials and production on the one hand, sales and revenue on the other.
Right. Costs and income.
And the underlying logic, the philosophy, it's actually the same for both, isn't it?
It is. In both cases, we're taking a simple overall difference, like total material cost variance or total sales margin variance, and we're splitting it. We're disaggregating it into two specific components. One related to the mix of materials or products, and one related to the overall volume or efficiency, yield or quantity.
Yeah, it's all about breaking it down to find the root cause, getting beyond the surface number.
And the ultimate goal isn't just doing the math. It's about understanding the meaning behind those numbers so you can actually manage performance strategically. When you connect this to the bigger picture, it lets you move management discussions away from just good or bad totals.
Right.
It helps you get to actionable intelligence that can refine your strategy, improve accountability.
So instead of just saying, sales were a bit disappointing this quarter,
You can be much more precise.
you could say something like, well, the total market actually grew a bit, giving us a small, favorable sales quantity variance. However, our sales mix variance was really unfavorable, which confirms competitors are hitting us hard on our high-end pro model. We need to rethink our pricing or promotion for that specific line, like now.
Exactly. Or you could even connect the two sides, production and sales. You might find, hey, our favorable sales mix variance, great job, sales team, pushing that high margin product actually created huge stress on production.
Because that product uses more of the expensive stuff.
Precisely. Since that high margin product needs a lot more of premium material A, the sudden demand caused a stock out. That forced an unfavorable materials mix change downstream, using a substitute, which then hurt our yield.
Wow. Okay. So you see the whole chain reaction across the different departments.
That's the power of it.
So for you listening, if you're learning this, maybe for an exam or for your job, understanding this whole framework, it means you can cut through that complexity pretty quickly. You can look at performance reports and understand them at a much deeper level. You're equipped to ask the really sharp questions, not just why did costs go up, but maybe, okay, was that unfavorable yield a deliberate trade-off we accepted to get a really good mix variance? And if it was, who actually approved that decision?
That's moving towards real management insight. Hashtag tag outro.
So what does this all mean at the end of the day for the modern manager?
Well, I think it means that genuine performance management, the kind that actually helps you steer the ship, it absolutely relies on isolating these different effects. You have to separate the impact of deliberate managerial decisions, like changing a product mix, changing a material recipe, running a specific promotion, from the impact of basic operational efficiency, and from those big external market forces you can't always control.
Right.
And these four specific variances we've unpacked today, materials mix, materials yield, sales mix, and sales quantity, they are fundamentally the essential tools for getting that clarity and for assigning accountability where it truly belongs.
And thinking about that trade-off we mentioned between sales success and production stress, it does raise one last kind of provocative thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you have a situation where sales knocks it out of the park with a favorable sales mix, they successfully push the most complex, maybe highest volume, highest margin product.
Yeah, sounds great for sales.
But that success swamps the factory floor. It leads to unexpected severe pressure on getting the right materials, maybe forcing substitutions, causing an unfavorable materials mix variance, maybe poor yield too.
Right, the knock-on effect.
So who should really be held accountable for those resulting cost overruns down the line? Does sales bear some burden for pushing volume or complexity perhaps beyond current capacity? Or is it purely on production for, failing to keep up, failing to procure what was needed for the strategy sales executed?
That's a tough one.
It really is. That intersection where revenue success potentially causes production problems, that's where performance measurement gets really complex. And you absolutely need this kind of deep dive into the numbers to even begin to answer it fairly. Okay, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.